Richard Gere said that once.
All right, so we are back and we are at episode five, right,
Wow.
Stephen? Five,
Wow. Already.
five, five. Where's it? There it is. So, again, here we are. We do some recording. We release it every Monday. So, again, if you have already tuned in, we appreciate it. There have been a very decent amount of views of we're putting shorts out on YouTube and we're doing some reels on the Instagram, and then we're doing the audio on the Spotify. So um, that's our idea of a three-way. Oh, how's that? Um, so again, we appreciate everyone that's subscribing to the channel on the tube and following us on the socials. And again, we're here. I'm
Thank you.
Scott, Stephen James. We do it because we enjoy a lot of this has been about music, clearly, because we love music and we could talk about it for hours on end.
Right.
But we're going to factor in, movies, maybe some other topics in the weeks to come, maybe throw in some guests. But before I introduce the topic for today, Stephen, what's your shirt? What you
So,
got?
this is a community that I belong to. I'll just do a quick little plug here. Uh, uh, Real quick, I like the kind of paranormal thing and the ghost stuff on YouTube, and
Okay.
finally realized that most of it's bullshit. Oh, sorry, cuss yet. Sorry, most of it's BS. And I stumbled onto this guy, and he, at first I was like, "How dare you?" But they're the nicest people. The community, they're so nice. They're loving. They help with people that are having mental issues. People, along the ranks of people that don't have together other people. I don't know if that makes any sense. So I'm support.
What
His
a
name is
group.
Beardo. His
Yeah.
name is Beardo, and he's a great, loving guy. He's in South Wales,
Okay.
England. And anyhow, so he supports me, he supports us, I'm support him. So here we are together.
Well, thank you, Beardo, and everyone in that community, yeah, for checking it out. Manson Brothers. So,
Yeah.
friend of the show, Chris Margettis, producer, director, actor, writer
Yes.
extraordinaire. So this movie came out a couple years ago now. They are working on a sequel.
Nice.
The actor strike and everything that happened and then got resolved kind of threw a wrench in some things. So it will be starting soon, but
Cool.
maybe we'll get Chris on in a show in a couple weeks. He loves Maiden. He loves music. He actually has a pretty deep knowledge, and so it's pretty nice to talk about it. So again, representing where we can. So
Awesome.
for this week, yeah, it's great. So for this week, we are episode five, right?
Wow.
We're going to go ahead and talk about our top five metal songs in the 80s that influenced us. So influences, metal songs in the 80s.
Mm,
No particular order. We're just going to
yeah.
talk about it. And again, we invite everyone. There is some, always leave comments right on the social. So if you
Please.
feel differently, let's create a dialogue, and we want to hear from everyone. So Stephen, I want to hear from you. No particular
Oh,
order. Where do you want to start?
okay. So I know we talked about this last week. I think the first introduction to real metal was Accept Fast as a Shark because of the double bass drum. And I thought, how's that? How is that? I mean, I had one bass drum when I was a kid, and I'm like, is he
Yeah.
doing like a floor tom and a bass drum thing? And I listened to it over and over again, and I thought, wow, this is so cool. Which is why I eventually went to playing double bass drum, is because of that song.
Nice.
Just a stellar, and God, I wish I'd done a little more homework. I don't know what year that came out. I'm sure it's really early 80s. But what an amazing song.
No, absolutely. And that's true. You said it before, and I would have to agree. It's certainly one of the not the earliest metal song, but when it comes
No,
out, just having that sound, that those drums, and the scratching of the vinyl to start the song and the
right?
scream. And
Yeah,
just so we keep it consistent, I'm saying it, Udo. Every
yeah.
show we mention Udo. So
Yes, we do, don't we?
yeah, that's awesome. And I'll pick up one, and we'll kind of just go back and forth and trade off. How's that?
Sure. Absolutely.
So this brings back one of my first memories, and there's two. We talk about again how songs and bands really kind of seeded themselves early on in my youth and propelled me down this path.
Mm.
One of them from 1981's Mob Rules,
Oh.
Black Sabbath, and the
Mm.
song Turn Up the Night.
Oh my
I
God.
remember hearing the beginning of that and just thinking, what is this?
Yeah.
This is incredible. And if I want to go back, and I will, I was a big fan of listening to Jim Ladd, who passed away over the last year, but he was a stalwart in the broadcasting community for 50 years easily. Um, but he did a show called The Seventh Day. And
Yep.
I used to listen to it on KMET, and then it went to KLOS. So it was probably
Yeah.
one of those two. And I remember staying up late on Sunday night, and they would play seven, yeah, at the time, seven vinyl records
Mm-hmm.
back to back to back to back to back to back. I think that's seven. And one of them was Black Sabbath and Mob Rules. And
Mm.
that record, that might have been the gateway really for me to get into Sabbath. Certainly going down the Dio path and being introduced to this song. You know, a rumble of thunder, I'm suddenly under your spell. There's no
Mm.
other, I'm under the spell of metal.
Right.
There's no other way to put it, but Turn Up the Night.
Yeah, on that album and that too, and even Mob Rules, it's the song itself
Mhm.
is, man, I mean, but when you say Turn Up the Night, I can hear Tony Iommi doing that look that he does before each chorus. So it's just a stellar song.
Yeah,
What a stellar song.
absolutely. And real
And I know
quick,
you play it a lot, which I love because every time you play it, my volume goes all the way up.
I do. I love it. And real quick,
Hmm.
on your Accept Fast as a Shark, that was 82. So
Okay.
that's our
Wow. So
perfect.
we're a year off.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. Yeah, I think it's going to segue into Dio now since we're on that subject. And for drums, anyhow, when I heard We Rock,
Mhm.
um, Vinny Appice, holy mother of drummers. I mean, hard hitting. And he does this thing, and I'm gonna try and show it up where he holds the stick like this when he's playing, which is
Okay.
odd like that. But
Yeah,
if you watch videos, he does this a lot, which is an amazing thing. But that song and that snare beginning and Dio's voice, just I mean, Dio is it, right? I
absolutely.
mean,
Yeah.
Dio is the quintessential metal god. I mean, I know Rob Halford says he is, but Dio just shreds.
Yeah.
Oh, shredded.
I would not disagree. You know, again, you know, we hit on, you know, Halford, and we have by bookmarking so far, and their careers continuing. They're on the road now
Yeah.
with their new record, but 50 years in between releases. And is he the same singer? No, he's not. And you
No.
mentioned that before, but certainly in what stands out. But when you break down and I'll take this as an opportunity to segue into a singer that arguably these three together, and there's a fourth and fifth, and I'm not ranking them until I do, but you have Dio, you have Halford, and you have Bruce Dickinson.
Oh,
Brings
yeah.
me to my next selection.
Mm,
And I'm going to cheat a little, Stephen. My
go ahead.
apologies.
No, do it.
The entire Peace of Mind release,
Oh, yeah. I agree
all of it.
100%. I
Now,
agree
Flight of
100%.
Icarus, right? You know, that might stand out for sure, but the Trooper
Commercial.
commercial, yeah,
Yeah.
you know, again, because you know, MTV was there for sure. But I remember vivid memories, and this is where you know the term a core memory. So a core memory for me is this entire record and how many times I listened to it
Hmm.
and how many copies I went through. You know, back when we were kids, and I think that's what record companies hoped that, you know, as kids are going to spend their allowance because they're going to play a cassette multiple times, and it's eventually just going to like just fall apart, or the
Hmm.
player is going to eat it. and you have to get a new one. Had a vinyl as well. Then when CDs came out, they were still, those could crack, right? You put them into your Case Logic case, and people might steal that. That was worth stealing, right? And in
Right.
high school, they break your windows sometimes. But yeah, this record, I have vivid memories. Came out almost 41 years ago, May 16th, 1983.
Crazy.
That was actually the release date in the United Kingdom. And Capitol Records, first album with Nico. He was in Trust. We talked about Nico on a
Yeah.
earlier broadcast. But this is it. Come on. I don't know if there's a stat for best record ever recorded in the Bahamas, and maybe we have to do some research. But
Right.
this was recorded in the Bahamas, and to
Oh,
this
I didn't know
day,
that.
yeah, and Compass Point in the Bahamas. Martin Birch, who is a genius amongst himself, really, as far as when it comes to recording. He was the additional member for many years for Maiden,
And
for
still
sure.
is.
Yeah. So
Yeah, and still is.
this one, I love it. It's the most critically and commercial successful. It reached number 3 on the UK charts. It's gone multiple times platinum for sure. But this really launched in. We talked about, in a future show, we could talk about tours. I didn't see Maiden yet on Peace of Mind. I saw them on their next tour, but this was, let's see, were they Saxon, Fastway, Coney Hatch, Quiet Riot, Axe, not to be confused with Kick Axe. But again,
Another
this
band.
record really loved them, and I think this ended up being in the United States 1 million.
Wow.
It's probably gone next. That's according to Wikipedia, and they probably sold, and we could easily find this. If they're in the 50 million range, it's probably about where they're at. Are they the biggest seller in metal? No, but are they consistent? Are they steady? Am I a bigger fan of their earlier releases? Yes. Not so much in their latest ones, and maybe I just need to give it some more time. But yeah, I could talk forever about this record, but I just love
I
the
could too.
record. If I had to pick a song, I'm gonna say Flight of Icarus, but fantastic. Definitely, clearly had an impact on me and
Yeah.
in the 80s.
Well, interesting how we're both segueing into the same band because I'm going actually, and which Peace of Mind is truly my all-time favorite. I mean, if we have to up the irons, we're gonna up the irons for
Okay,
that.
nice.
But my first influence to Iron Maiden was the song Killers.
Okay.
Um, that bass intro, which we'll talk on our another show, we talk about how it began with Steve Harris beginning that thing. But what really kind of triggered me on that song was the bridge with the harmonies between he and I don't know if Steve Harris is doing it with him. But that song just was like it was punk rock, it was metal, it was raw, it was like wow, it's unpolished, which after we go past that and get to Peace of Mind, it sounds more like this beautiful orchestra. But there's
Mhm.
something about that song that just was like I could listen to it over and over and over again, and that kind of was one of the things that got into my livelihood of not only playing drums but learning how to play bass and getting a bass guitar and going, well, I want to play that too. I
Nice.
like that. Bass and drums obviously go together, but Killers is going back just a step. Is one of the another influential songs that was like, holy moly, let's listen to that.
Yeah, I do like the the first 6, for sure 7. I think Seventh Son was the 7th release. I think that
Hmm.
wasn't a coincidence, right? Which came out today. How many years ago? Would that have
Wow.
been? Maybe 87? I'll have to look on that. So 36, 37 years ago.
Wow.
Um, but yeah, definitely the rougher, not as polished side of Maiden was the Paul Diano days, for sure. Obviously,
Right.
where they started in the clubs and where they worked through. Again, this going through the songs, yeah, the title track for sure. But Yeah, Murders in the Rue Morgue,
Oh,
Rothschild, you
yeah.
know, there's some killer stuff. I'm gonna have to go back and revisit that. And again, there's I think I may need to get a Killers poster for somewhere in the old studio. But yeah, there
Yeah.
was it's almost, if you look at it, and this could be a future show, top bands that had a second singer. But maybe there's an emphasis just to say for those bands that had, a first singer, could you almost say that if Maiden stepped with Paul Di'Anno, they would not have been the Maiden of today. They would have
Right.
been, a UFO type level probably band.
Hmm.
They would have stuck kind of in that range. They would have been successful. People would have liked them, for sure. But it definitely took a different path with Bruce Dickinson. But no, I like that. Yeah, that's cool.
Well, and interesting when you just mentioned UFO, it's like when I think of UFO, I only think of one song, Lights Out in London. Like what other songs? And I'm not trying to badmouth them. I'm
No,
just saying that's what I think of when I think of that band. But when I think of Iron Maiden, I think of wow. I mean, a plethora of. And if anybody hasn't already known at this point, I'll profess Iron Maiden is my number one favorite heavy metal band. So
absolutely. Yeah.
anyhow.
No, that's great. All right. So this got a little tough, and and that's why I'm purposely not doing a true 5 to 1 or 1 to 5, or any of those. We're just naming five because it would
Hmm.
be, it's like, it's like kids or your favorite, whatever. It's hard to pick.
Oh,
But
absolutely.
the next one I'm going to throw in here is the song that I remember hearing and this is another one of those memories that stands out because I had a brother, still have, 3 years older than me. Um, for our, our family issue show, we'll save this topic, but
Sure.
we had different interest. Um, but this is the one time truly in my 50 plus years on earth that there was this intersection,
Mm.
and he was listening to a cassette, maybe it was a CD, but he was listening to Fair Warning,
Mm.
and specifically the song Unchained came on
Mm.
from Van Halen.
Mm.
1981. We're all kind of, in the 81, 82,
Wow.
with Peace of Mind in 83. 11 years old in 81. There, I just came out. I just gave my age, right? But that song is my all-time favorite song.
Really interesting.
And I play that a fair amount on my show as well. But that opening line, the guitar, Eddie Van
Hmm.
Halen, and
Hmm.
just that power and just the energy. And there was just something about it. Again, to this day, I smile when I hear that song. And
Hmm.
I have a number of vinyl records that I can switch out, but they're displayed. And I'm looking right now at the Fair Warning record. And if you think about it, you stare at the album cover, you go, what the hell is going on in that album cover? And really up until I put it on the wall about a year and a half ago, I never really studied the album cover. And I can just go back to that day, 18 months ago, and said there's no reason for me to study that album cover again. There's nothing redeeming
Hmm.
from it. It doesn't really make any sense. And if they did it purposely, it's more the matter of the story and the heart and the meaning of everything is
Right.
in the music. The album
Yeah.
cover doesn't mean anything. Might as well just
Right.
be black, but there's a few bands have already done it. But definitely Van Halen Unchained 1981 off Fair Warning.
Oh, yeah. And I probably just an off topic as far as Van Halen's concerned. My favorite Van Halen album is Van Halen 2.
Okay.
Um, and just that there's, I think there's a presence of more drumming on that with Alex. And we'll segue off of it quickly. But since Van Halen's talking, yeah, Unchained, that guitar intro is, oof, you know, Every time I hear it, I'm the same way. The volume goes up. Well, actually, I can do it on my steering wheel now. I don't have to reach
Yeah,
over and
absolutely. Yeah.
turn it up.
So
But
you can
yeah,
turn it up and you can remain safe behind the wheel
yeah,
at the same time. That's great.
and I could remain fair warning. So
Yes.
which is I'm giving you a fair warning. Yeah, what a killer tune and what a great album. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Um, so this might go backwards a little bit. And going back to Quiet Riot, and I
Okay.
believe this is off their first album. It must be, but the song Run for Cover
Okay.
again goes back to my passion of double bass drumming. And I heard kind of a funny story that there's this metal thing coming up with Jack Russell of Great White, couple other bands. They're like, oh, and Quiet Riot's playing. I'm like, is there any original members in that band still?
I don't
Kind of
think
made me.
so. Yeah.
I don't either. Maybe like one of the bass players, but it just kind of made me giggle. But like, I don't know how many tickets they'll sell to that. Nothing bad about it, but if I want to see
Right.
Quiet Riot, I want to see the original band with Kevin DeBro. But that song, Run for
Agreed.
Cover, is such a great, just in your face heavy metal song that has that rock and double bass drum. There was a sound that in that era that it was like a really snappy snare sound. There's a couple other bands that have done it, but that just railroads. Like you put that song on, you're like, whoa. I mean, again, and that'll segue into another band I'm sure both of you and I are going to talk about next, but or our song. But such a great band back in the day, and they played Us Festival
They
back
did.
in
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I don't know that song, so I need to,
Oh yeah, you got
I
to
need
check it
to,
out. It's great.
yeah, I'll write it down and check it out.
It's a great song. It's a great song.
Yeah. So moving along, and I kind of toyed with which one would go next, but since it's not a true order, I'm just going to pick the one that's next on my list. And some say is the greatest metal record of all time,
Mm.
Metallica and Master of Puppets.
Oh yeah.
Again, it's there was a friend on Facebook that made a post earlier today is which record did you listen to the most during high school?
Yep.
And I didn't even have to hesitate. I'm all, yep, it was Master of Puppets. So, there's not much more to be said. It's just a phenomenal track in itself. The record is incredible. Just the sound, the energy, everything about it. Um, Loved it. Love it to this
Yeah.
day.
And quite a long song if you think about it,
Mhm.
but it has that what I like about Metallica or back then about not that I don't like them now, but how their songs had several bridges and several nuances to one song, and
Yeah.
that was just I remember when I first heard it, it pushed me back. I was listening to I had a little truck back then. It pushed me back in my chair. I was like, what is
Yeah.
this? Whoa. Yeah, I ruined that one too. I had to actually when I'm sure you had the same thing when you pull the cassette out and the tape got stuck and you're like, oh, that one's
Yeah.
ruined. I got to get a new one.
Yeah. Try to
Uh,
save it, but yeah, it
what a
didn't work
great
most of the time.
no, yeah, try put a pencil in there and try to spin it back. But
Yeah,
what a great track. Oh my God. That whole album too is just phenomenal.
absolutely.
Absolutely. All right, we'll jump now to I think was an EP. And I know this is probably your most favorite singer. And this
Yeah.
doesn't again necessarily go in order, but when I first heard Queen's Reich and Queen of the Reich, I was like, what is going on here? And I know we kind of briefly talked about how
Yeah.
Halford, the singer for Deep Purple, kind of initiated that high scream, not falsetto, by the way. And when I heard that song, I was so blown away. Take Hold of the Flame. I have to throw another honorable mention. Um, there's that Live in Japan that they have that
Hmm.
it's so stellar. And that's when you're like, oh well, you hear it on the record or the EP, but when you see it live, you're like it. And Krista Garmo's harmonies are higher than Jeff's. It's like, what is going on?
Yeah, absolutely.
What is going on there?
So that's wild, but also not wild because I had a feeling that you were gonna go to the EP.
Hmm.
And again, the kind of synergy that we have on a lot of these bands is pretty awesome. Granted,
Yeah.
we're similar in age and we have similar likes, so to have overlap is really not that much of a stretch but when it comes down to like specifics on songs or singers, and in this case, the EP released in '82,
Wow.
by the way. Um, Not recorded in the Bahamas, in Redmond, Washington. The track and all of this I love. You mentioned Queen of the Reich. You mentioned um, drew a blank right now, but that's okay. You mentioned all of them. The song that goes for me is Lady Wore Black.
Oh, just gonna say that.
And in that, just the kind of the pacing and just the build up in the song. And when it gets into the chorus, that is just classic Jeff Tate, where it's just
Right.
this strong, the lady wore black, and you just feel it. And again, everything about it. You talk about again the memories and what shaped us and where the path that we took.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I probably bored people that got into the truck with me because I probably replayed Queen of the Reich over and over again. I don't know if you remember Noggles back in the day. It was a little taco joint,
Yes. Mhm.
and for whatever reason, metal people used to hang out there and play music,
Yes.
metal music.
Yep.
And that's my memory of it is Noggles and late and not only Lady War Black, which is a phenomenal tune. If you listen to those vocals, how pitchy and perfect he is, how he brings it up and down
Yeah.
it gives me goosebumps. I mean, music, it's interesting real quick. I'm going to segue out real quick. I saw Godsmack last night and it was called the Vibes Tour. And it was a little toned down. It wasn't in your face
Yeah.
Godsmack. And Sully was sitting there. He had acoustic guitar and he was talking about how songs and music resonate to you. He's like, you can play this crappy note, or you can play this great note, or you can play this, and or you can play them together, which led them into Nothing Else Matters. And it was
Okay.
interesting because I have music is passion to me. Music can pull me into so many different directions. I have a wide variety of music I listen to. Preferably, I really like female singers. Why I don't know.
Mhm.
Like the other day I was driving home and I heard Pink singing a song and I was like, listen to that voice.
Oh
It
yeah,
was like
absolutely.
just out of this world. But going back to Queen's Reich, that tape, I think I owned like 4 or 5 of them.
Sure.
Uh, I'll that memory of those songs is emblazoned into my brain.
Absolutely. Did
Yeah.
you have one more? Did we go through five?
I think I had one more, but I think it went back to Iron Maiden, Where Eagles Dare.
Okay.
Um, which again, I guess I would have to really just go with that whole album because I could pick songs off of it, but that whole record from start to finish is to me one of the best pieces of heavy metal ever.
Absolutely.
And you and I both agree on that. And I think we both got the anniversary vinyl, which is sitting in my room right now, which I was like, hell, you got to have that.
Oh yeah. No, I do. Yeah, I definitely picked that up. So awesome. So that was
Yeah.
our top 5 metal songs in the '80s that influenced us. So that's it for this show. As always, thank you guys for tuning in. We'll be back next time for episode 6.
6.
6. There we go. We're gonna be talking about top 5 metal shows in the '80s. So until then, thanks. Remember, tune in, subscribe, YouTube, Instagram. Appreciate it. Take care. See ya.
Talking shit out. Oh,
Talking shh.
oh, sorry. I have a potty mouth.